It's February 28th, and that means there is absolutely no Nintendo Direct in the month of February. So the next big event we have to look forward to is, well, let's just say one of the things I'm most excited for in the video game realm, the Nintendo Switch 2 April 2nd Direct. Oh, baby, 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 I'm so excited for this Direct. But that doesn't mean there's not a couple things going on before it. Now, look, obviously, we all know about the leaks and the rumors and all that. PH Brazil was the person who said originally there would be a Direct this month, and then halfway through the month, he's like, actually, I'm only single sourced on this, so I'm not like 100% confident. But he did also drop at that time that, hey, he did know about a new game, a brand new Nintendo Switch game coming for a beloved IP that's a little bit niche. And the Pokemon Presents happened yesterday, and we got this announced, folks. Yes, you're looking at Pokemon Champions. That is, maybe you're looking at it. Maybe I had to delete the footage because the Pokemon Company copyright claimed the video. I don't know. They're really very big sticklers about these trailers. That being said, Pokemon Champions is obviously a continuation of Pokemon Stadium, Pokemon Coliseum, which is, again, Pokemon's a beloved franchise, but this is a niche spin-off from that franchise. So yeah, PH Brazil was wrong about the Direct, but right about the game, so that's pretty cool. Obviously, we've heard about things from Nate the Hate, such as, hey, Kirby Planet Robobot is coming to Switch at some point this year, so I guess we still have to look forward to that announcement at some point if you think that Nate the Hate knows what he's talking about, and I happen to think he usually does, especially when he says something will happen after the Switch 2 event in January and how many people came after him, and he was right the entire time. I'd like to say he's earned quite the benefit of the doubt here in 2025. But setting that aside, obviously Jeff Grubb chimed in a couple weeks ago saying that he heard there was going to be a Direct of some type this month. He thought maybe a third-party Direct or something. Never happened. And then you get to she who shall not be named being wrong twice, not just saying the Direct would be last week, but there would then be a Direct at least before the Pokemon Presents, and that didn't happen. And now we're the day after, and it still didn't happen. Look, I do think Nintendo has an event coming up. Mario Day is coming up March 10th. It lands on a Monday. It's the 40th anniversary of Mario. There's already a 40th anniversary Time magazine out there right now. Look at this thing. Pretty badass. You guys should go pick it up if you happen to see it on your local magazine racks. I haven't seen it yet, but it did release this week, so there's that. And look, that's all exciting. And Nintendo could have an event that day that could reveal some ports and remasters, some new Lego, maybe something about the Mario movie. Again, that's all speculation because Nintendo hasn't actually hinted at anything yet for Mario Day, but they tend to do something every year, and it is the 40th anniversary. So I kind of expect them to have something. If it's not a small presentation, then maybe it's just a bunch of social media drops. Either way, yes, I do expect there to be something. That being said, what we're actually focusing in on here is what's happening next, and that is the Nintendo Switch 2. Look, it's going to be a pretty dry month coming up. We got the month of March coming up. We got 28 days or so here in March before we can get there. We're 33 days away from the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. Next week we're going to be talking about how we're less than a month away, which is crazy. But when we sit back and we think about this, the Nintendo Switch 2 is really where all the hopes and dreams reside. And its reveal, as exciting as it was for me, you, and everyone else, it kind of just went along with all of the stuff that leaked out there and didn't give us a whole lot new outside of confirming, obviously, the leaks and then Mario Kart. Now, you could say, well, that means leaks ruined the reveal. I'm not so sure I can blame leaks for it. I think it's more so that it's iterative. It's another Switch. You see this? This is the Switch OLED. It literally looks like this, just with some different colors. So I would argue that it wouldn't matter if there were leaks or not. People would have been let down by the reveal because it doesn't look extremely different from the Switch OLED. And obviously, you look at it and you go, man, is that screen really going to be an OLED? Probably going to be LCD. So then in some ways, it might feel like a downgrade. So I can see why some people are let down. Of course, this is an iterative system. And, kind of like when we have, I don't have it on me right now. I was going to grab my phone. The phones, generation to generation often look the same, with most drastic differences happening every 4 or 5 years. So I would argue that, it's fine that it's iterative. In fact, most people think it's fine that it's iterative, and they think it's a good thing. I'll give you an example. How many analysts are out there saying that, hey, this thing's going to sell at least 19 million in its first year, first 12 months on the market, or 24 million? Yeah, those are some predictions out there. How about Matt Piscatella, of all people, from Circana, formerly the MPD, out there saying that, hey, they are projecting here in the United States that the Switch 2 is going to actually turn around the video game industry. The video game industry's actually been shrinking and on a decline, and Switch 2 is going to come out and turn it around, both hardware and software-wise. Pretty crazy to think that that's the impact that Switch 2 could have, that it is so big and so popular that literally upon launch, it's already going to be turning worldwide markets around, even here in the US. Obviously, we know Switch's complete domination out in Japan and some very popular countries in Europe and other places. So I understand that there's a lot of excitement and anticipation around the Switch 2. The investors seem excited. Nintendo stock is soaring. But what we have to remember is success is never guaranteed. Success has to be earned. And one of the things we think about when you're on top, and Nintendo is on top, don't let the naysayers get to you. There will be people out there telling you Nintendo is not the market leader. Don't listen to them. In the console space, the closest thing is PS5 that's sold half as much as the Nintendo Switch. That's right, 75 million to 150 million. It's not actually that close. Yes, some third-party games absolutely sell well on PlayStation, as they should. PlayStation is the third-party play device. It is the device a majority of consumers buy, not for Sony's games, but for the third-party games. Don't believe me? Well, the best-selling game, first-party-wise, published by Sony, is Spider-Man 2 at 11 million in sales. Wouldn't even crack the top 10 on Switch. In fact, I don't even think it would crack like the top 12 or 13. I'm just pointing out that, that's not why most people are buying PlayStation. They're buying it for the third parties, the Call of Duties, the Assassin's Creed Shadows coming up, all of that stuff, right? That's why they're buying PlayStation. And you know what? There's actually nothing wrong with that. All those games were reasons to buy Nintendo in the past. The Final Fantasies of the world, the Maddens of the world, the NFL quarterback clubs and the NBA jams and the WWE versus WWF or WWF versus NCW New World Order, all this crazy stuff. The point is, back in the day, third parties were also a huge selling point for Nintendo. It was a big reason to buy the Super Nintendo, not just first party, but the big third party games. And that slowly dwindled from the N64 onward, which is when the PlayStation came into the market. Things seem to be taking a turn, though. Square Enix announcing that, hey, we're not going to just be bringing our games exclusively to PlayStation anymore. We can't do that anymore. It doesn't make sense. We got to bring our games everywhere, not just PC and Xbox, but Nintendo. So, as we sit back and we look at the gaming landscape, Switch 2 is being pegged to be somewhat of a savior for an industry that's in decline. Meanwhile, we have GTA 6 kind of just hanging over all of us as the biggest game launch of all time coming later this year. And we don't even know if that's on Switch 2 yet. In fact, that's the thing about Switch 2 is we mostly don't know anything. We can talk about all the leaks. We can talk about all the hardware leaks. We can talk about the shipping information and the rumors. But in the end, if you think about it, we actually don't know that much about Switch 2. We have no clue what the UI is going to look like. We have no clue what features it will or won't support. We don't know if there's going to be a browser. We don't know if it's going to have social media or streaming apps for video or anything. We have no idea if they've revamped the eShop. The only thing we know for sure is NSO is coming forward. But then now people are going to start questioning things about NSO because, hey, look, Nintendo announced a game is leaving the Nintendo Switch Online service for the first time ever. Now, it's only happening in Japan, and that's really sad, but if we think about it, now we don't even know if we can rely on the NSO to actually keep the same games it has. These third-party games get added to NSO, are they just going to get ripped away? Do we have to worry about Genesis vanishing on Nintendo Switch Online? Is that something that could happen? Now we have to question that. It's not that some of us didn't expect that this would happen someday. It's just, it hasn't yet until now. So now we sit back and we wonder about the future of Switch 2. Can it really be the mega successful thing that analysts think it will be? And can it be as successful as some gamers hope it will be and some gamers hope it won't be? Well, we now know Nintendo Switch, and in this case Switch 2, doesn't technically have any true competition right now. Sales came out for the handheld PC space. Turns out over the last 3 years, they've only sold 6 million in total. Nintendo just did that last quarter with Switch, when Switch 2 was already talked about coming officially by Nintendo and now revealed in January. You see what I mean? It is such a non-starter to say that that is a competition for Nintendo that it's almost laughable to even bring it up at this point. And this is not to insult PC gamers or the ones that like to play on your Steam Decks and your Legion Go's and your Allies and all that. I'm not insulting you guys. Maybe you're even still playing on the GPD Win series. Nothing wrong with that. I'm a PC gamer, man. I've been gaming on PC since 1996. I get it. I love PC gaming, but it doesn't mean that it's a competition for what Nintendo's doing. Then you look at Microsoft, who did announce, or at least Phil Spencer has straight up just said, they're going to be releasing a handheld. That's pretty cool. That's kind of exciting. I am looking forward to see what Microsoft's going to do there, but I think that's, again, going to be more in the PC handheld space rather than the home console space. And I say that because Microsoft is a PC company. Hello, Windows. It's like the market dominant leader on PC over things like SteamOS and Linux and all that. Windows is number one. So like, yeah, they're kind of just going to provide an actual viable, really usable Windows handheld experience, what I think they're going to do. And I think that's awesome for the PC market, because if you're using Windows, then you're not locked into using Steam. You can have the other gaming platforms there as well. You know, your Battle.nets and your Epic Game Stores and all that. So that's cool. And I'm happy for Microsoft. I think it's actually a smart direction for them. Maybe they'll still come out with a traditional home console. We don't know. Obviously, Sony's going to have a PlayStation 6, and there's been some whispers and rumors that there might even be a Sony handheld. Cool. But we know what happened last time. Sony doesn't have the ability to support the handheld with exclusive games at a decent pace. We just know this. Nintendo even struggled with it for years, supporting two platforms and trying to keep a consistent pace of games going, and they somehow made it work for a long time. Sony made it 2 generations in and had to abandon it because they couldn't make the games fast enough. And now we're at the time when Sony's taking forever to make their games, and they're barely getting games out on PS5. Do we really think they're going to properly support the handheld? And even if the idea of the handheld is just to play all your PS5 games portably when PlayStation 6 comes out, okay, but if you already own them on PlayStation 5, how big is that market that didn't just buy a PlayStation 5 Portal, where the PlayStation 5 Portal's purpose for just $200 is to play your PlayStation 5 games portably? Do you really need a dedicated handheld? Is that really going to take off just to do something you could already do for cheaper? Although, yes, requires an internet, and streaming is a fickle thing, and not saying it won't be a better experience, especially when you're on the bus and on the plane or, at a coffee shop. I'm not saying it won't be better. Obviously, playing locally and dedicated hardware is better. But is that something that PlayStation fans are really demanding? Or are they going to be focusing on the games they already have on PS5 and playing them on the system they already own, and then working towards buying the PlayStation 6? I just think that Nintendo is kind of in their own market right now. And yes, all these companies compete for everything. They're competing for each other's times. But the thing is Switch 2 really going to be successful? Is the tepidness around the reveal going to matter? I think that the answer to that's going to be no. And I think the tepidness only exists because of the games. Let's just be honest. We buy systems to play games. The systems are just a box. They're a means to enjoy something. It doesn't matter that the PlayStation 5 looks like a spaceship come from, Planet X. It doesn't matter that, they decided with the Xbox Series X to make a cube and then make a white mini DVD player VCR thing without a disc drive. None of that matters. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter that the Xbox Series and the Xbox One basically use the same kind of controller, although technically, there's slightly newer tech in the new one, but they look almost identical when you hold them side by side. It doesn't matter that the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller is pretty much going to look identical to the Switch Pro controller, or that the Switch 2 Joy-Cons look very similar to the Switch 1 Joy-Cons. None of it really matters because it's the games. The games are why we play. And what Nintendo has going on with Switch 2 is quite unique. Do I think Nintendo Switch 2 will outsell Switch 1? That I don't know. It's very hard to repeat success, and history tells you won't happen. PS2, 160 million. PS3, 80 million. DS, hey, 155 million. 3DS, 75 million. History tells you, sure, Nintendo will sell a lot of Switch 2s, but if history repeats, it'll be about 75 to 80 million, which, by the way, is still really successful for Nintendo, but not the 100 million, not the 120, the 130, the 150, or 60. That's what history tells you. But I don't think we're living in the same time frame as those histories. If we think about it, the DS sold 150 million, and a lot of those sales came before smartphones became popular and everyone had one. Once everyone got one, there was less need for many people to buy something like a 3DS. Also, there's some arguments the 3DS isn't great branding, and it obviously had a really horrible launch without any great games and it was overpriced, but that's besides the point, right? Then you get to, obviously, the PlayStation 2. Blew up, took off, could play your music CDs. It was awesome. DVDs. And then, in came the PlayStation 3 with the Blu-ray player, but they priced it at $599. That's more expensive than the PS5. The base PS5 is not even as expensive as the PS3 was. And that was back then. You know how much inflation has happened? Do you realize what they were charging for that? And that's beyond the fact they were using this technology that was very difficult to work with in the cell processor. They weren't getting their games out very fast. Third parties were having a hard time making their games run well on there, while the Xbox 360 that was less powerful, that came out a year prior, were getting all the games running even better on their system because they used, off-the-shelf components that were easy to work with. So, look, there's been reasons why those systems and their sequels, there's a reason those systems did really well, and there's a reason the sequel systems did not. I don't think Nintendo's in that situation. Outside of the fact that there's not anywhere else to go right now that's viable for what Nintendo's doing, Nintendo also consistently puts games out. The entire Nintendo Switch generation, they averaged publishing a single game every month. Forget indies and third parties. Every month, Nintendo put a game on their platform. 12 games a year for 8 years. I just want you to let that sink in. 12 games per year for 8 years. That output's insane. That output is utterly insane. Think about that. Do the math. 96 games released in 8. Do you understand how hard that is to do? And yeah, some were just ports and remasters, of course. But every month, every single month, Nintendo published something. That's insane. Then we had some amazing third-party support and started to get some of that AAA support back. We just got Civilization 7, and yeah, the worst version's on Switch, but it still runs, it's still playable, and it's still fun. Just like Hogwarts Legacy. It runs, it's playable, it's still fun, it's just better elsewhere. Switch 2 is now going to close that gap and give us a comparable experience. Hogwarts Legacy on Switch 2, if there is a Switch 2 version or a Switch 2 update, is going to feel now comparable to other versions. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to quite hit the same frame rates or the same resolutions, but it's going to be comparable. And that's all Switch 2 needed. And it's all it needed because the only thing missing isn't more beautiful, gorgeous Nintendo games. We're going to get those. It's not the amazing indie scene. Yeah, they're going to be all over this thing. It was the full support of the AAA space. And this is at a time that the AAA space is really struggling. Look at all the layoffs. Ubisoft might be selling to Tencent before the end of the year. Look at all the studio closures. We just lost a massive WB studio because Suicide Squad tanked, and they were working on another game in Wonder Woman, and now that's canceled. We just saw Concord, a $200 to $400 million investment from Sony, get canceled after a week. Maybe it comes back as a free-to-play. I don't know. But the point is, the AAA industry isn't doing well, but it was also the only thing Nintendo needed. Nintendo was able to avoid so much of the controversy in the AAA space because the AAA space wasn't supporting them. Now the AAA space is crawling back. Why? Maybe if you made your games for the market leader, things would sell better. Maybe if you got your budgets under control and targeted a less powerful platform with smaller teams and in-control budgets, and then expanded it out to everyone else, maybe you'd be in a better position. Square Enix seems to have realized this. They recently, as of last year, said they can't be making these exclusive games anymore, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It underperformed for them. It didn't make the money they needed it to make. It underperformed as a PlayStation 5 exclusive. So what do they say? Moving forward, we're putting our games on everything. That also includes Nintendo, by the way. And Nintendo's a company they saw individual success with timed exclusive games. They had timed exclusives like Octopath Traveler. Did really well. Did so well, we got a prequel on phones and a sequel. So, in the end, Switch 2 has a lot of pressure on it. And I think it's going to deliver. Is it going to outsell Switch 1? That I don't know. Is it going to sell over 100 million? I'm fairly confident in that. I think it could hit 120, maybe even 130. It's going to really depend. I don't think we're going to have a pandemic. I'm kind of writing off 20 to 30 million in sales due to the pandemic. So I think that's where things are going to lie. But in the end, I want to know your thoughts on all of this. It's obviously kind of a big, giant conversation on Switch 2. I'll also be live tonight if you guys want to come ask me questions about my thoughts on all this stuff. Be live around 7 or 8 p.m. Central Time. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.